and I think he lasted about a week and a half.
Honestly, don't think I've ever known a summer like it, a summer transfer window like what we're currently going through. I don't think I'm exaggerating either. I'm a half glass full West Ham fan, but it gets to a certain point when you think to yourself, what is actually going on within the club? Because you can't help also but think that there's maybe something going on at the club because of the length of time that things are taking, and the leaks seem to be relentlessly coming out that there's an issue with the transfers decisions and what coach and what manager and what technical director and sport director are all interested in, and they've got all disagreements in there. Now, if you haven't, go back and check out the video that Russ did last night with the guys from West Ham Fan TV, Babylon Irons and Claret and Booze, where he'd done our own transfer committee discussing some of the targets and whether or not we would bring them in or not. Very good show, but it shows you how a debate can spark controversy over a particular player. So if you've got a 4-man or 3-man committee and you've got a couple of players on the radar and it's 3v1 and one of the ones is the manager who goes against the other 3, then that is going to cause a rupture through the system of what's happening up top. So when it comes to this transfer window, it's tough not to look at the situation, whether you believe the leaks or not, and think something's not right at the club, because we're the only club now that have not signed a single player. I'm definitely a firm believer of not bringing in quantity. I really want quality over quantity. I've said it many a time. We've done that, wore the t-shirt. The season under Pellegrini, we brought in a lot of recruits, and look how that worked out. So I definitely believe in it's about the quality over quantity, 1,000,000%. Now, if we do sign some players very, very soon of decent quality, of decent ilk, of reputable, backgrounds, and they come to our club and we start to freshen up what we've currently got, then I'll take back everything I'm saying potentially right now on this situation, which is all about Scamacca. Because you're hearing so many reports about potentially, and I don't doubt for a second there's an element of Italian media trying to generate stories from nothing, but let's not beat about the bush here. They're getting little snippets of something, and whether that's in an interview that he's talking about his boyhood club, which you can't take away from him. West Ham's our boyhood club, and if we were a player, the excitement of potentially playing for your boyhood club would be there. But then equally, though, when you read some of the old interviews, he does go further on and say, listen, I'm at West Ham, I want to go and prove myself in the Premier League and all that sort of stuff. But the stories keep creeping up and keep coming our way. And rumours are stating that Roma are now ready to make an official offer to West Ham to sign the Italian international. And he's been subject to so much speculation this summer. And the Serie A giants are linked with a move for him, who they are needing to replace their big striker, Tammy Abraham, who of course got injured as well. So apparently, according to the media outlets, that Roma are now ready to firm up that interest by offering a West Ham a loan deal of over £4 million. And that clause will allow them then to buy the player for around about £19 million. So West Ham, in theory, if this deal is led to believe to be true, then West Ham would recoup about £24 million back on a player that we spent quite a lot more than that. That's typical West Ham deal. Now, I'm not saying this is true, but this is where my video is going at. Or I'll continue with the rest of the story. Apparently, if they do sign him, then that's subject to further options and more money coming West Ham's way if they were to, say, reach the Champions League, or he was to maybe make a certain amount of appearances. Now, they are looking to clearly potentially take advantage of West Ham's current situation at West Ham. And let's not beat about the bush here. We know clubs will be interested in Scamacca, potentially in the Serie A. And if they do know that it's his boyhood club, then why would they not try and tempt the fate? Of course they would. It's just whether or not West Ham are interested. Billy McKinlay himself spoke out a couple of weeks ago saying that there's no rumour that's true regarding Scamacca leaving the club. We're fully committed to him staying at the club. Yet still these rumours keep coming out. He did say in a recent interview that it was a dream for him to play at Roma essentially at Roma, his boyhood club. And he spoke about how good a manager Jose Mourinho is, and the deal that they're offering. obviously, if that is true, is quite frankly not enough. Nowhere near the money which should be even remotely considering accepting, considering we paid over £35 million from Sassuolo last summer. And that really would not benefit us at all. But the situation is what is actually going on with Scamacca. We need that situation resolved. I tell you what, there does pay dividends to let the fan base know exactly within reason sometimes what's actually going on, because right now the fan base are in disarray and you need the fan base on your side. Categorically, they need the fan base on their side from the game one. You know, we're the European champions and we need to start off this season a lot better than what we have to try and progress as a club. What we can't afford to do with 2.5 weeks to go is lose what would be our main striker. Now, the key part to Scamacca being successful at West Ham is that he needs to be our number one striker. He needs to be. It can't be Antonio. It cannot be Antonio. It needs to be Scamacca starting week in and week out. It can't be that he is fit and in the first game of the season we see Danny Ings going in there. No disrespect to you, Danny. I think that you've had a really good preseason and I think you can feature. And if you are going to feature, then feature alongside Scamacca, but not on your own. But when Scamacca had consistency running and playing for teams, he was pretty relentless in his style of play. He played well over 40 games for Sassuolo before he came to West Ham, scoring several goals, 16 goals. He was very effective in his style of play when he played for Sassuolo. You know, he played in a couple of formations as the lone striker in a 4-2-3-1 or a 4-3-3 formation. And he is a well-rounded centre forward. And he was supported and the ball was put into the box to him. But he also drops deep. He likes to shoot from distance. He's a big lad, 6'5". He's got a unique physical frame. He's an aerial threat. We've not saw much of that, but we've not saw consistency in the team. You know, when he was at Sassuolo, he was winning well over 60% of his aerial duels. And he was up there in the kind of top percentile in Europe's leagues. So with his physical build, people would associate that maybe he can't play ball, but we can see he can play ball. That's the thing. We've seen these little elements and adjustments that he's made in his game that show that he is more than capable of stepping up to the plate. His movement, his anticipation, especially with the flight of the ball, are very, very good. But that won't turn into anything if he doesn't start games or doesn't play games. And I really want him to give this next season a shot. I want West Ham to give this next season a shot. I want him, you know, what scares me slightly about the Scamacca situation is West Ham aren't really pushing him either on social media. I'm not saying that's the big reason, the be all and end all, but right now what we need is some form of relief in this whole situation. You know, some form of relief to know that we've got our number 9. Great idea that Mbama's going to feature a lot more next year. That's a no-brainer. And we still have to wait and see what happens with Antonio. But the last thing we need coming up to the start of the season is what we believe is our number 9, you know, potentially leaving the club. I hope he doesn't leave the club. I believe he won't leave the club, but I don't know how confident I am on that. What I want to see is his complementary style of football that he brings to West Ham, because I do believe West Ham are going to try something new this season, whether people like it or not. I genuinely believe it. And I want to see his flamboyancy in terms of him releasing his shots early from outside the box, you know, getting on the ball quite a lot, linking up well with Paqueta and whoever West Ham decide to bring in. You know, when I think of Carlos Borges coming in, whether or not he's going to play, it's his pace, it's his explosiveness that getting in the box and also crossing the ball into the box. And there's no other better player you'd want there. And Scamacca even hanging off the edge of the box for drawbacks so he can shoot from distance and put the ball into the back of the net. And that's exactly what he can do. He definitely can do that. He possesses traits of an orthodox target man, but he's skillful and he's creative with that as well. But, you know, he's not also a kind forward. What I mean by that is, you know, he doesn't necessarily, he respects his opponents, but not too much. So he likes to get stuck in and he likes to get involved. And that's something that's going to offer us such a bright way of football moving forward. You play Scamacca as your number 9, as the main target man up top, and that changes again the dynamics of the football that West Ham need to play, because we're not relying on the bullish mode that we've got when we've got Antonio playing up top. We cannot start the season with Antonio, and we cannot start the season with Danny Ings on their own up top. It doesn't make sense. It will not make sense for our style of play, because people have cottoned on to that style of West Ham play It's slow, it's ineffective, it's static, and it doesn't happen. And you can't just bully your way through a game. What you actually need is not just one bull, you need about 10 bullies on that park that can push a team forward. And I think if we bring relevant signings in alongside potentially Scamacca, even looking at Max Cornet, that's pace. It gives us a different dynamic moving forward as a team. And it's something that maybe David Moyes hasn't done, which is all a little bit confusing when you look at the David Moyes situation. But I want to see the dominance that we know that Scamacca can be. And I think there's an element of giving him the confidence, the knowledge that he is going to be the number one. And I think that will pay dividends to West Ham, because I think he will then feel the confidence and he knows he's the big top guy up top, and anyone else, he's looking over his shoulder and he's like, listen, I need people to challenge me, rather than him looking back forwards and seeing Antonio in front of him. That's not going to do him the world of good. Our style of play needs to change away from Antonio. You know that. I know that. But that is something that we need to do. What is going on with Scamacca? Like, if he's away in Italy again and he said he's going back to get a checkup, is he back? I've heard he wasn't in training today. What is the situation? What is going on? We need to see some form of consistency as fans. We need to make sure that these players are frontline and centre and the media outlets, so we don't have to have that panic come into the first game of the season. What you don't want to happen is, have this situation where we haven't signed that many players, we're not happy, and we go 1-0 down in the first game of the season and we're booed off the park. It's awful to even think that potentially could happen. But something else we have to consider is the fact that he is a young Roma boy. Like, he loves his boyhood club, and of course them paying any form of interest in the guy is going to make his heart palpitate, and he's going to be totally interested in going to them. It's his boyhood club. Just imagine what it would be for yourself. So you can't fault him for having an interest and a keen interest in them. But when it comes to West Ham, we have to think of ourselves. We have to put him as the main number one, and we have to let the fan base know. I'm not asking him to put a statement out to say he's not leaving, but in theory, I'm kind of asking for something along those lines, within reason, that we know that he is the main man. Let's get him back into the training ground. Let's wrap our arms around him. Let's protect him, and let's see what this big Italian gazelle can do in our West Ham side. Once we make a couple of new signings, once Paqueta feeds off of him, we can get a little bit more excited with regards to Scamacca. I think the future for him is bright at West Ham. I think this year could be the year that he could fall in love with the club, could fall in love with London, and he could get a few more top quality years out of him and bring Mubama through the ranks. What do you think? Put it in the comments. Let me know your thoughts on the Scamacca situation. I am a bit concerned. I'm not going to lie to you. He was in Italy. I don't know if he's back now. And sometimes there's cryptic situations go on in social media. I heard that he pulled off, or someone had pulled off, West Ham on his bio on Instagram. I don't know how much you look at that. It could be a mistake. It might not be. It might be just tidying it up. You name it. Whether or not you're into that sort of stuff, that could pay a key message to what he's trying to achieve. Let's wait and see what happens. But either way, I'm telling you now, I want Scamacca to start in West Ham shirt, being the main man up top with our new style of football, because it's coming. Trust me, it's coming. But hopefully it's going to be Scamacca that's going to reap the dividends. Anyway, if you're new around here, please hit that cheeky subscribe button, hit the thumbs up, leave a comment. Thank you very much for watching. And of course, come on, you beautiful Irons.